My friends always make fun of me when I say hi, guys. But anyway, that's not even what I'm here to talk about. But I'm here to say something that any and every relationship that you have, it is never easy. Any relationship that you have is never easy. The reason why I'm saying this is because for me, for the longest time, I always thought that my relationship with God should always be perfect. Like, that is what I had already destined for myself, that my relationship with God should always be perfect. Because I had always put a lot of expectations in that relationship. That every time I need something, pap, ndivyo, answered quickly, imeendelea. Because I always knew that my relationship with other people, with myself, is never easy. And it's never going to be easy. But then I always thought, God is so mighty, so supernatural. My relationship with Him should always be perfect. But then something happened and it got to shift that perspective. Because I got to realize that the time that maybe things are not going well in my life, that's when I'll be like, God, me and you, I don't think like we are literally talking in the same page. But then I got to give myself the leeway to understand that, hey, at times my relationship with God is not always going to be perfect. And my relationship with God should not always be one way. That it should always be two way. That even in the moment whereby I also want to God to do things for me, also let me allow myself to be immersed in the will of God upon my life. Because in the moment whereby things are not going well, we usually into that place whereby we want to be so angry at God, be like, God, you don't always listen. But hey, remember that you always pray. That's what I was telling myself. You always pray and you tell God, God, may your will be done upon my life. And maybe His will upon your life at that moment and season is for you to just wait. It's for you to serve and immerse yourself in the will of God. And not always think that your relationship with God is going to be one way. You expect God to do things for you, but also God expects you to do things for Him. He expects you to wait patiently, to have faith, to have humility. And it is also not going to be easy because you have the flesh. And the Bible says the things of the flesh sometimes zinakwanga contrary to the things of the spirit. And the things of the spirit at times are usually contrary to the things of the flesh. That's why you may be needed to pray and fast, but you're like, hiyo njaa sidhani inaweza shindana nayo. But you're being called in a place of fasting, of praying. At times things are not, an aspect of your life is not going well, but God is calling you in a season of obedience. Like it's for you to immerse yourself to the will of God. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be angry. The moment that you're angry, be angry at God. And tell God, by the way, you know what, God? I am so angry at you. Because it's an emotion. And just like you cannot always be happy, you cannot always have a soft relationship and a smooth relationship with the people around you. See, at times you're usually angry at yourself. At times you may be angry at other people. You're also allowed to be angry at God and tell God and be very honest with Him that, you know what, Hapa, I don't feel like we were going well. I don't think like things are going well. I'm so angry. Why would you do this? And at times it's also good to also be happy with God and be like, God, thank you. Because just like any other relationship, your relationship with God is not always going to be perfect. your relationship with yourself is not always going to be perfect. For me, I'm an advocate of self-love so much. And I'm telling you for a fact, the relationship that you have with yourself is not always going to be perfect. The relationship that one is totally normal, and it's totally it's something that is very common. The relationship that you have with other people is not always going to be perfect. That one we've already set up in our minds that it's not always going to be perfect. Not every day will you be in the same page with your parents. Not every day will you be in the same page with your siblings. Not every day you're going to be in the same page with your friends. There's always some type of what's called wrangles between you and them. So it's the same case in your relationship with God. But it's also not going to be a smooth relationship. You just have to allow yourself to be immersed in his will. And the moment that you're angry, it's good to be angry, because you're human and you have the emotions. So it's totally fine and it's totally okay to be in that season whereby you're having a perfect relationship with God, and a moment whereby there's some kind of rift between you and God. And it's totally, totally normal. Even the relationship that you're going to create in the future, you won't always have a perfect relationship with your husband. That one now, it's you won't always have a perfect relationship with your husband. There's one time that you'll definitely have to argue and not be in the same page. And there's also that time that you'll not be in a perfect relationship with your wife. You won't be always on the same page. You won't be in the same, you won't always also have you won't also have a perfect relationship with your children. Like, every relationship that you get to create is not going to be perfect, because there's nothing that is perfect in this world. The only thing and the only person that is perfect in this world is God. He's the only one who does things into so much perfection. Otherwise, all these other things give room for mistakes. Create room for mistakes. Create room for rift. Create room for wrangles. Otherwise, if you do not do that, you're actually not living life. And that's what I've got to learn lately about my relationship with God. Always thought that it should always be perfect, but it can't. It can never be perfect. Even before, I used to think that the relationship I have with myself should always be perfect, because hey, I'm with myself 24/7. Why should there be any room for mistakes in the relationship that I have with myself? But then I got to realize I'm also human. There are things that I may want to do, but because of how I feel, I may decide not to do them. But I have to be disciplined, consistent in the relationship that I have with myself. Disciplined in taking myself out on dates, in making that effort of waking up early in the morning, dressing nicely, wearing makeup, smelling nicely, to build my confidence. So just like any other relationship, your relationship with God will never be perfect. Any relationship will never be perfect. Create room for mistakes, create room for rift, create room for misunderstanding, but also most important, do not forget conversation or conversing. Because in the moment whereby you have a rift with someone, you always want to, and you value that relationship, you always want to communicate to them, right? So in the same way, when you're feeling that you don't have a perfect relationship with God, communicate it frankly to him. Don't be like God knows everything. Communicate it frankly to him and tell God, you know what, God, I am angry at you. So that's it for me. Thank you for staying till the end of this video. I hope you have an amazing time, and always remember that to create a deeper relationship with God, and that it will always not be a perfect relationship. Mwah.